that we can meet or continue cases that are in the minutes without approving the minutes until afterward. Is that legit to do? You're muted, James.
It's legit, but it's best to approve them if you can.
Okay. Let me ask sense of the board. Did anyone find anything significant content? Not talking spelling errors or grammatics, we're talking omissions, errors, kinds of things. I didn't find many. The reason I ask is that if that's the case, then we can just go through quickly, approve items by content, or approve them as minutes go forward without getting into the nitty-gritty of details. Anyone have an opinion?
They all look good to me.
Okay, why don't we just hit them? I'm going to do them in chronological order from top one down. Again, I'm looking at for changes of meeting or errors and omissions, not necessarily minor grammatical things. We can deal with those either afterward, or I'll just give my copies to Susan. Okay, June 11th, 2020. Entertain a motion to approve as written.
So moved.
Actually, I have a question for that. Okay, sorry. Motion by Mr. Kreider, second by Mr. Jandeber. Susan, I noticed a couple times that there was no request for a continuance listed specifically for 1912 Aroma Joe's and Carter. We have open requests for continuances with those. Do we need to state either that there was an open request for continuance, that we have the motion made, we have the case called?
Oh, so I forgot to put down that they requested it. I can
Well,
just go.
that's why I'm wondering, do we need them in the minutes that there was either an open request for a continuance?
Yeah, I just found one too. So, okay.
Okay, so I would like to amend the minutes to, on page 3 of June 11th, 2020, case 1912, essentially add to line 9 that we have an open, I think Aroma Joe's has an open request for a continuance.
No, he's requested every time. So
Okay. Anyway, essentially a statement that the applicant had requested a continuance. Okay. Are the motion and second amenable to changing that to as amended?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Discussion? Hearing none, all those will do, I guess we'll have to do a roll call vote on the amended minutes of June 11th.
Lee,
Yes.
Hal,
Yes.
Tim,
Yes.
Betty,
Yes.
and Bob.
Yes. Okay, June 25th, 2020.
Motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
Was that Betty or Lee? Betty, must have
That
been
was
Betty.
me.
Oh, that was Lee? Okay, sorry.
No,
No,
Oh,
Betty.
it was Betty.
I couldn't tell. It was very quiet. Just the same comment on page 3 for case 1912 that the applicant had requested a continuance, which would be like line 18. And Susan, I'll give you my handwritten copies for those. So I think the motion was by Lee Baldwin and second by Mr. Kreider.
No, Betty.
Betty, sorry. Motion by Betty Smith, second by Hal Kreider. or as a motion, as minutes amended? Discussion? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote, please.
Betty?
Me? Yes.
Okay. Betty,
Yes.
Tim,
Yes.
Al,
Yes.
and Bob.
Yes. Okay, July 9th, 2020.
Motion to
And-
approve.
Okay. At this point, after I call the minutes, if you have any statements to changes you want to make, just either raise your hand or start speaking, because we have a good many to go through. I did not find anything myself. Do we get a motion in a second?
I made the motion.
Okay. Do we get a second?
Second.
Okay, motion by Mr. Kreider, second by Ms. Betty Smith, I believe.
Yep.
Discussion? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote on minutes as drafted.
Lee,
Yes.
Al,
Yes.
Tim,
Yes.
Betty,
Yes.
and Bob.
Yes. Okay, July 16th, 2020.
Motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
Betty Smith.
Okay, Betty Smith makes the motion and Hal Kreider makes the second. Discussion? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote as drafted, please.
Betty,
Yes.
Tim,
Yes.
Al,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
and Bob.
Yes. July 23rd.
Motion to approve the minutes. Betty Smith.
Second.
Second.
Okay, second by Lee Baldwin, motion by Betty Smith. I have nothing. Discussion on the minutes as drafted. Hearing and seeing none. Susan, can do a roll call vote, please, as drafted.
Lee,
Yes.
Tim,
Yes.
Al,
Yes.
Betty,
Yes.
and Bob.
Yes. July 30th.
Motion to approve.
And a second.
Yes.
Okay,
Most
motion
second.
by Mr. Kreider, second by Mr. Jandeberg. Discussion? Hearing none, seeing none, motion as drafted. Roll call vote, please.
Al,
Yes.
Tim,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Betty.
Abstain. I wasn't there.
Oh, okay. And Bob.
Yes. Okay, August 13th.
Motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
Okay, motion by Ms. Betty Smith, second by Ms. Lee Baldwin. Discussion? Hearing, seeing none, we'll do roll call vote as drafted.
Betty,
Yes.
Tim,
Yes.
Al,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
and Bob.
Yes. August 20th.
Motion to approve the minutes.
Second. Okay, motion by Betty Smith. We'll give it to Lee this time, Lee Baldwin. Discussion? Motion as drafted. Roll call vote, please.
Lee,
Yes.
Al,
Yes.
Tim,
Yes.
Betty,
Yes.
and Bob.
Yes. August 27th.
Motion to approve the minutes.
And a second.
Second.
Motion by Betty Smith, second by Lee Baldwin. Page, I'm just going to point this out. Page 3, line 21 and 22 has just a repeated line, and discussion on page 5, line 13. Mr. Burdine states that he wants the board to ask do they need any additional information? I think I would want to add, he wants the board to ask the applicant, no, ask if the applicant, do you want to check that?
I think I am, in those circumstances, likely asking you to consider whether you need further information from the applicant.
Okay.
I don't have that in front of me, but
Right.
from what you read, it sounded like something along the lines of ask you to consider whether you need further information, would probably get that meaning.
Actually, it would be stated that he wants the
What line was it again? I'm sorry.
line 13 on page 5.
Oh,
Ask us what the board.
If.
Okay. Just doing the sentence graph, the wordsmithing, and Mr. Burdine states that he wants to ask the board if they need any additional information from the applicant.
oh, if they do.
Okay, that was the only thing I found of, so let me double check the rest of my pages. Yes, that was the only thing I found of significance. Okay, and I believe we had a motion and a second already, but I don't remember who.
Betty and Lee.
Okay. Is the board amenable to that change on page 5
Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
and the motion? Okay. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote, please, as amended.
Tim,
Oh, sorry. Yes.
Al,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Betty,
Yes.
and Bob.
Yes. Okay, September 10th.
Motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
Okay, motion by Betty Smith, second by Hal Kreider. Discussion. Seeing none, hearing none, aside from Ms. Baldwin has muted herself and has no video, so I can't hear or see her.
Hi.
Hi, thank you.
You don't want to hear the dogs. It's okay.
That's okay. I trust you will mute yourself if you, or unmute yourself if you need to, but, okay. Motion and second, just a roll call vote as drafted, please.
Betty,
Yes.
Al,
Yes.
Tim,
Yes.
Lee.
Yep.
And Bob.
Yes. September 24th.
Motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
Okay, motion by Betty Smith, second by Hal Kreider. And this is one that impacts us tonight. If you look at page 3, line 33, we have all the appropriate people here tonight. They agree to a 2-to-1 slope with every 30-foot difference in elevation, there would be a terrace. I do not, when I read that this morning, I did not recall the terrace distance. Mr. Holden, do you remember? Is it I don't have
The,
my plans in front of me.
How wide the terrace is?
Well, they agreed, I know we have a 2-to-1 slope with every 30-foot drop, there's a terrace, is that correct?
That's correct, yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to check the number more than anything else.
Yeah. Yep.
I
that's
don't know
something-
where
that's
else I
something
would have
you
gotten it from.
Yep, that's fine.
Yeah,
I was going by my memory, which I can't always verify. Okay, so never mind that question. Well, I take that back, and I had another flag on page 4, the very end of line 35 is possibly forcing a well to run dry polluted. That is not a term I'm familiar with. I could see it a dry or polluted. Is there any, this is the same case.
What? Who was speaking? You?
If you,
I'm sorry. What line was it again?
that's okay. Line 35 on page 4. This is when Ms. Young, Winnie Young was talking.
No,
And we were
this
talking
is
about the idea
study.
of having a hydrogeological study. And that's just that dry polluted term.
I wonder, maybe polluted was, that doesn't look like it belongs there.
Well, I can understand it if it's a matter of the study, the whole sentence, the study itself would be to find out if the site was causing pollution or flow changes, possibly forcing a well to run, quote, dry polluted. I could see it as dry or polluted. Does that
Okay,
make
maybe
sense?
it-
More sense? Would either one
That
of
makes more
our
sense.
engineers or conservation commissions want to talk to that? Does that make sense at all? Is that term dry polluted a technical term, or is it dry or polluted?
I don't know. I don't know.
Okay,
Dry or polluted makes more sense to me, but that's.
okay. Can I get a head shake or a head nod, Mr. Holden, or do you have any opinion on that?
I have no idea what it means. But I think
Okay.
I would see it means it's either dry or it's polluted.
Okay, I just wanted to double check.
Never-
So I'll amend it to suggest we amend it to dry or polluted. On line, the end of line 35, page 4. And that's all I have. Further discussion? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote as amended, please.
Lee,
Yes.
Al,
Yes.
Tim,
Yes.
Betty,
Yes.
and Bob.
Yes. Knocking them down. October 8th. Motion.
To approve the minutes.
Go ahead.
Motion
Second.
to approve the minutes.
And a second.
Second.
Okay, motion by Betty Smith, second by Lee Baldwin. Discussion. Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote as drafted, please.
Betty,
Yes.
Tim,
Yes.
Al,
yes,
Lee,
Yes.
and Bob.
Yes. October 22nd,
Motion to approve the minutes.
and a second.
second,
Second.
Okay, motion by Betty Smith, second by Lee Baldwin. Just a couple notes on this for not a significance. Well, wanted to add the case numbers to page 1 for Millstone and Millstone. And then for 19-6 Carter, we need the open request for a continuance. And that also occurs on page 2 for 1912, as we've already discussed. Further discussion? Susan will do a roll call vote as amended, please.
Betty,
Yes.
Tim,
Yes.
Al,
yes,
Lee,
Yes.
and Bob.
Yes. Okay, November 12th, 2020.
Motion to approve the minutes.
second,
Motion by Betty Smith, second by Mr. Hal Kreider. Discussion on this, I'd like to add to page 1, line 25, essentially case 20-5, that no public comment was received. The same applies to case 20-6 and 20-7. And I'm making that assumption based on the fact that there was nothing added to the minutes, and that's going also by my notes and recollection. But that does not necessarily mean that the video recording confirms that. Further discussion? We'll do a roll call vote as amended, please.
Lee,
Yes.
Al,
yes,
Tim,
Yes.
Betty,
Yes.
and Bob.
Yes. Okay, last one, November 19th, 2020.
Motion to approve the minutes.
Second. Someone?
second,
Okay, motion by Betty Smith, second by Hal Kreider. Discussion, same thing, I'd like to add the case numbers to page 1 for 1813 and 19-20. And for on page 5, line 39, I think we just left out the word "do." In short, putting 7 times, this is Chris Berger's statement. In short, putting 7 times the number of residents in the area that is already disproportionately dense due to our 200-year houses before Northwood decided blah, blah, blah. Just add the word DUE in there. And again, Susan, I'll give you my handwritten notes in basket if you need them. That's all I found. Just further discussion? We'll do a roll call vote as amended, please.
Al,
yes,
Lee,
Yes.
Betty,
Yes.
Tim,
Yes.
and Bob.
Yes. Okay, thank you for that and with your patience.
So we have a couple more that I did email you December 10th, I think it was, but I can print out copies again, and 'cause there's going to be a couple more sets.
That's okay. I think that
You're
I'm-
good for tonight?
I'm very
Alright.
satisfied that we are
Okay.
caught up because I feel I like to have minutes to refer to. But that was enough for tonight. Okay. Case 18-13 and 19-20. Gentlemen, thank you again for your patience. But now that we have minutes for the record, I can actually refer to them and pull them out. So what's changed between the last time we met?
So, Mr. Chair, as you'll recall, we had previously discussed whether further hydrogeologic analysis was necessary for this site. We had requested an opinion from the town engineer as to whether a hydrogeologic study was needed. And the letter from the town engineer came back, I believe, like a day before or the day of
Right.
the last meeting that this was scheduled for.
Right.
So the applicant had requested a continuance so that they would have an opportunity to read and digest that letter. And I think it made sense from the board's perspective as well. So I think the primary thing that the board should be discussing tonight is the contents of that letter and whether any further study is necessary. I think from my perspective, since at a prior meeting, I can't remember if it's the last time we actually discussed this case or not, the board had also determined that additional zoning relief was necessary from the ZBA. And my understanding is that's in process. I think from my perspective, between those two questions of, is any further study or information necessary, or understanding the applicant's intent as to whether they would like to seek conditional approval prior to completion of that ZBA action, or whether we're waiting for the ZBA to complete their review before that happens, lets me know when I need to have that draft list ready for all of you. So I'd appreciate the board's direction on that.
Okay, let's deal with the hydrogeological first. Let's see if I can find that. Do we have a date on that email by chance?
December 17th. Oh, well, excuse me, the letter from CMA is December 17th. Let me find the email.
Oh, it'll be after that, so that's fine. That gives me a chance to.
No, Linda sent it out the same day, 12/17 at 12:02 p.m.
Yep, okay, there it is. Thank you. I have the. I have the letter requesting a continuance, but I don't have the letter itself.
Let me forward it to you.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, wait, you're R. Strobel,
Correct. Yeah,
not Bob.
okay,
Sorry.
not a problem. Happens all the time. Sorry for the delay, but let's go ahead.
Did you get it?
Not quite yet.
I'm hitting send receive. It shows it's sent on my end.
Yeah, I'm sure it's traveling over the Ethernet at this point in time.
I do feel.
Mr. Olden, do you want to go ahead and give us your comments on the CMA letter on the hydrogeological study?
I think generally, when we talk about an additional or a need for hydrogeological study due to the blasting and the removal of material, I think they basically agreed with the study that we did, sort of it, to know where we thought we were. And I think they basically said the same thing we did. One of the things that they did talk about was the relationship of the finished grade of the pit to the wetland. And we had talked about that previously here in-house. And so we are almost done with modifying the elevation of the floor of the pit in some places. Our idea is that whatever water lands on the land around this property won't get interrupted by our excavation, and whatever water lands in the excavation, the floor would be high enough so that it would be able to flow into the wetland where it goes today. Right. And so we're making some modifications to the grading to do that, and we're almost done with that. I think the other part of his letter was making sure that we got a wetland permit and an AOT permit. And we've been dealing with the wetland people for a while, and we took out a pipe and put it in a box culvert, not because of water flow, but because of critters potentially going under our road. And because of that, we had to raise the road up, which caused our wetland impact to be larger because of our side slopes. And we have pretty much finished regrading the road so that we keep the wetland impacts under 10,000 square feet. We were at 9,600 square feet, I think, before. The reason we picked 10,000 square feet is it puts us into a different process with the Wetland Bureau, providing mitigation and stewardship of land, and it gets pretty complicated. So our goal, and I think the reason they give you that 10,000 square foot threshold is so that you do your best to try and stay underneath it and you minimize your wetland impacts. So we are about to send that back to the Wetland Bureau, and I would expect we would very quickly get our wetland permit, because we've gone back and forth with them a lot. We had a site walk with them, and I think when they went out there, they better understood what we were doing, which maybe wasn't as easy to see when you're looking at a plan. We have been pretty much ready to apply for our alteration of terrain permit, and we've been just dragging along. And the reason we haven't submitted it is because we didn't want to get our permit and then have someone give us a comment that caused us to change something, because the AOT permit application is pretty complicated. It's inches thick. This is probably going to be 3 or 4 inches thick. And when you send that to them, they really don't like you to send revisions to them because they have to go through that whole thing again. So we try and not submit our application until we think we know where we're going. I think at this point we could probably do that, and because they are going to certainly have input on things like blasting. They have their own regulations on how far wells can be from your blasting area before you have to monitor the ground between you and the nearest wells. Ours are so far away, or our butters are so far away, that they won't have us do any monitoring, but that's a box that they need to check off as part of doing this. So I think we're at a point where we would like to go ahead and do that. We do have our ZBA approval. We had our meeting the 28th of December, I believe, And it was somewhat uneventful. I think there wasn't a lot of discussion. I think the way I saw it is we all thought we got through the ZBA process with a special exception, and we now had to go back and get the variance. And what we're waiting for is, because it was done remotely, the ZBA wants to give the public the opportunity, someone that couldn't speak on the remote or for whatever reason, time to make comment to the ZBA. So we're on the agenda for January 25th to finalize our ZBA action. When James was talking about putting together the list of conditions, I think it's probably something that, from our standpoint, we should go ahead and do.
Okay. Thanks for that. Okay. Specific to the hydrogeological study, discussion or questions from board members. Hal?
So Peter, I just want to make sure I understand what you were saying near the start about the wetlands and the runoff and the changing of the grading of the floor. I'm looking at the very end of their letter. So that would be on page 4, where they talk about wetlands groundwater observation. And it talks about, the proposed setback is 100 feet from the wetlands. And we do slope away from that steeply. And that's where they then say the groundwater elevation beyond the setback will decrease significantly with excavation. Will the hydrology surrounding the wetlands and supporting the viability of the wetlands be disturbed and remain functional? So I interpreted that you were talking about that section. So let's confirm that first. And then second, I just want to get some sense, because I don't have the drawings right here in front of me. When you talked about changing the slopes and different things of the floor, I'm assuming that you can't get it, foot for foot. At this, along this linear path, the water flow is, so many cubic inches per minute or whatever you use as the measure. So I'm sort of assuming that you're making a general comment there, where if the water is flowing into the wetlands over in this general area here, the same amount of water flowing off the floor will flow in there as previously did. Am I interpreting that correctly?
You have to sort of think about, we have this 100-foot border around the wetland. Well, the ground at the edge of that border is at different elevations. It goes up and it goes down. But there are places where at the 100-foot border, it's generally the same elevation as the wetland.
Right.
So what we're doing is we're making the floor tip a little bit, and not a lot, because we don't want a big gush of water coming from anywhere. And we're tipping the floor so that in those areas where we can raise the floor up a little bit and get the flow to go into the wetlands, that's what we're doing. And I think what I'm saying is, I think what you were saying, there will be that high spot where the border, the 100-foot border, is higher than all around the ground around it. And so the water table there won't be what it is, but it is 100 feet away from the wetland. And the water that used to land there is now going to go sideways and then go into the wetland. So the wetland will basically get all the water that it gets today. Remembering also that as we restore this, we're going to be restoring it with, basically the conditions that are there today, so that as we migrate away from the wetland, there will be trees and vegetation that is going to act sort of like the ground does today. So it's, I think it's an improvement on our restoration process. Yeah.
Yeah,
It was a pretty good comment, so I
Yeah.
didn't mind the comment at all.
well, yeah, again, I just want to confirm, because you have multiple wetlands, so you're doing this for all the different areas or just one particular area?
No, we're doing it for all the wetlands.
Okay.
There's places where we're just either raising the floor up or we're stopping the excavation off a little bit short. So water that's not even on our land coming from the abutters land flowing onto our land would then flow into that wetland. So
Okay, so
I think it's,
So,
I think it's
basically
pretty good.
what we're saying is for every wetland area, we aren't substantially changing how much water flows into it from today. It might flow in perhaps a little bit differently, as you said, because you slope the ground a little bit differently, but ultimately at the edge of the wetland, for that particular wetland area, it's going to get the same amount of water as it is today when it's all said
Yes,
and done.
yes, that's what we're doing. Yeah.
okay, so let me phrase it to my understanding. When you refer to the floor of the excavation pit, you're referring to the undisturbed surface, not necessarily the overblast. So that, is that
Yes,
correct? Okay.
yes.
So
It
you will
would,
have,
it's the place. Yeah, it's a place where we are then going to put the till back on and all the different layers back on.
okay.
And we still have blasted material underneath it that we're not going to dig up. So, yeah.
Okay. And that to go further, Hal's statement that essentially the catchment area for rainfall of the current wetlands will remain essentially the same area, just the flow might be different.
Yes, that's the goal, is the water that goes there today will go there tomorrow, and it might go a little bit differently, but it's going to go to the same place. So, which I think was the writer's concern, that, well, you're going to dry up the wetlands and
Well,
it isn't. I don't think it's going to dry up because we have lowered the water table. It's going to dry up because we may have intercepted the flow of water that was going to the wetland. A little bit different. But.
okay. Yep.
Bob?
That was how I understood the concern from Conservation Commission. Hal, go ahead.
If we could just sort of check up on that, if you would, please, Peter. So there is one area, I guess, off to the west where there's I call it a hill, where there's a wetlands on the top of the hill.
Right.
You've done some digging around there and stuff. Is that terrain essentially the same? Is the underlying material essentially the same, i.e. the bedrocks? Because that's really the only place where I was thinking where you could have this idea that, oh, there's wetlands up here on the top of this hill. We blasted away, some of the sides around it, and therefore the wetlands are going to drain out. But I guess I wouldn't worry about that if it's, basically bedrock there too.
It's pretty shallow to ledge over most of this property. And what we did in that particular case with our revision is, instead of having this mound with a donut on the top, we cut a big chunk out of the donut and left it connecting to the adjacent properties, so that the water flows, it flows north to south. It flows towards Route 4, towards the big line crossing. And so we've left this wedge up there that the water can still flow. Actually, that wetland will probably get a little more water than it was before, but we're not cutting it off that way. So,
Okay, well, I remember that on one of the plans. So that
Yeah.
doesn't seem like a change to me. There was like a quadrant almost on the southwest side where it looked like that would flow that way. Is that correct?
It flows out that way, but
Yeah,
it
that's what
flows
I-
in from the north, sorry, I can never remember which way I'm going here.
Yeah,
North, yeah, it
Yeah.
flows from the north
from the north
to
to
the
the
south.
southwest.
Yeah, so we made it this big wedge in there, so that
Yeah.
the flow from the abutters property through the woods would not be interrupted
Right,
before it got to that small wetland. You know, once it gets to the wetland, if it were to flow out of that wetland, it would flow into the pit. But it's not depriving the wetland, the wetland of water.
okay.
Okay. Other questions from the board on that? Or another? I guess I'd sort of, Al, I wanted to give Ms. Young an opportunity
Oh,
to
sorry.
speak if she wanted to talk about wetlands or the comments received so far.
It seems like there's a lot of detail. I think that Mr. Holden's gone to a great length to protect the wetlands. I don't have the letter. I'm not comfortable of saying that the Conservation Commission is, if you want a comment from the Conservation Commission, I could take that letter to them. I'm not the water specialist on the Conservation Commission. I guess I can only say that it seems like there's been a great effort to protect the wetlands, and personally, I'm pleased with that. I think the Conservation would be happy with that. And as far as the letter that we sent, as I said in September, it seems like all of those concerns we had were being addressed, and this letter makes it sound, and Mr. Holden's discussion makes it sound like they have been addressed. So,
Thank you. I just sent you a copy of the CMA letter, Winnie.
okay,
So,
thank you.
okay, Hal, you had other questions?
Yeah, I have an additional question related to this. Peter, if you would just please go to the CMA letter, page 3, the very bottom, where it says, however, additional hydrogeologic characterization of the project and its settings are appropriate per NHRSA 155-A. So reading that, I'm sort of assuming that as you're applying to the state or as you're filling out your state permits or as the state is monitoring your work, this item gets addressed. It's not something that we specifically have to rule on. Is that indeed the case?
That is the case, yes. And I think that's why he was sort of encouraging to say, well, make a condition of any approval yet that they have to get all their state approvals,
Yeah. Yes.
which we have to do anyways. But
Right.
the 155E has to deal with gravel pits and this type of quarry. Doesn't have to do with cut stone quarries, but this type of quarry. And so when we apply for our alteration of terrain permit, they're going to look at that 155E and make sure we're doing the things that we're supposed to be doing. Yeah.
Not to be too nitpicky, but you're saying 155E as in Edward, and I think they quote 155A as in Alexander.
Yes.
So I just don't want any confusion there.
Are you on page? Oh, sorry, you're on page 3. I was looking at their 155E, which is on page 2.
And 155, like, the very bottom of page 3, please.
Yeah, I see it. Yeah, I see it now.
So I'm assuming that's all part and parcel of what, given that it's New Hampshire regulations, that's all part and parcel of what the state will ask.
Right. That's all.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to make sure because it's a different letter than you quoted.
It's
Mr. Chair, if I
155A is a quite long chapter. Anyway, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, if I could clarify one thing, my understanding of the provisions of RSA 155E that Mr. Holden mentioned that are the gravel excavations, for that RSA, you are the permitting authority. And that's why you have both a site plan application and an excavation permit application in front of you. So while AOT will consider a lot of the same things, you are officially the board that's issuing that permit to excavate. And the other thing that I wanted to ask of Mr. Holden that is mentioned at the top of page 3, the CMA refers to 155E's requirement of identifying the approximate depth of the average seasonal high water table as something that they didn't see on the plans, and I believe I had commented on a prior staff report as well. Is that information that your subsequent work has and revisions have identified the depth of that water table?
The usually you think about the seasonal high water table as some elevation below the surface of the ground in granular material. So that if you had, 50 feet of soil, the water table might be 4 feet below the surface of the ground. At times it might fluctuate up and down and be, 20 feet below the surface of the ground. When you have a ledge excavation like this, effectively the water table in the soil is at the bottom of the soil because it's running on top of the ledge. And so we would actually be digging below that, but we're also putting it all back so that when we get done, we aren't going to have, and I think the concern of this is that we're not going to end up with this lake out there that has water in it like people used to do. I mean,
Right.
we work on a lot of gravel pits for people, and there are some that are very nice lakes out there that used to be a gravel excavation, and that was the purpose of the seasonal high water table, so that didn't happen. And that's partly what we did by putting the overblast in and putting all the material back, is that we didn't want to have that.
Okay. Other questions, comments?
This went to Victoria also, correct, Bob?
Which, the letter?
Yeah,
It should have gone to the whole
planning board. All.
okay.
We can easily send it out again if need be.
No, I'm just, she was the one that had probably expressed the most concerns, and I just wanted to make sure she had a chance to see it. My assumption is if she had any serious issues, she might have either written or, asked that we discuss it at a certain date if she couldn't attend. So I'm sort of surmising that she's okay with this.
I don't think this will be the last night for this application. But I could be wrong, I don't know. Okay, what else do we have with this application? James, you mentioned relief.
Yeah, so that I wasn't sure what the ZBA's schedule with that was. So if they're on for a second hearing and theoretically rendering a decision on the 25th, then unless you scheduled this for your very next meeting, no, even if you did, they would have been back to ZBA before us. So I think I would agree with Mr. Holden that it's time to at least get that draft of conditions together for the board to discuss at your next meeting. And in order to do so, Mr. Holden, I would request if you could send me the entire plan set as a PDF as the version that you're hoping would be approved, so that I can take a final look through it, and any of the notes, that I would use that to assist me as I go through that list.
Yep.
Hal, go
And
ahead.
we had,
I just want to add to what James said, Mr. Holden, so that, and I want to sort of clarify my thinking. We had talked about putting all the conditions on one of the pages of the document. Was that correct?
Yes, and there was well, we had talked about some of the, when I gave you a draft notice of decision several months ago, and there was also the draft development agreement that Mr. Holden provided. I think that I don't think every condition will go on the plan set.
Okay. That's what I'm
And I
trying to
don't
understand.
think every piece of language that Mr. Holden wants to make sure is included is appropriate for the notice of decision. So I think
Okay.
that some mixture of ensuring the language is on the note sheet versus these are your state and local permits that are required that would go in the notice of decision appropriate. But I'd like to take a look back through the whole plan set so that I can do that and either request changes to the notes or
Right.
so really I'd just like to see everything in context, including some of those elevation changes, less because I need to see them and more because it's about time for us to have the final plan set if we're going to approve the final plan set.
I was just going to add, and that was part of the reason for asking it, because if some of the conditions are going to be on that plan sheet, then I'd like an updated version of the whole set electronically, not paper.
Yeah.
Please.
Okay. Anyone else on this case tonight?
Can I make one comment? Not to be
Certainly.
a pain in the butt, but I sent this to Linda. As far as the variance, and this may have been changed because of the changes in the plans. Definitely ZBA talked about site E and so on. And of course, they were comfortable with passing the special exception. So as Mr. Holden said, it's kind of just a formality because they already went through it once with the variance. But also site D, the crossing of where the road crosses, will cross into pit C, also has an area where Phil will have to go into a wetland, and it's in the big woods area. And they should just add that to that site D to the variance. I don't know if you've seen that, Linda. I sent you that with a little map. And it's in our letter. It's nothing new. It's in the letter that we sent and you received on June 29th. It was in the list. So we're not coming up with something new. It was already there, but I don't think it came up when I watched the ZBA meeting. I don't think it came up. So just to make that complete. This is site D. And it's not all of site D. It's just one place where, and it's not the crossing. It's where Phil has to be put in to support the road.
Right.
Just
I will resend that letter to the ZBA. They did receive it. I did get yours today with the highlighting and I can resend it to them.
right. So when they, I don't think it makes any, well, I can't say, but as far as the process, but again, it should be included in the variance, I think. And we did suggest that back in June.
Okay.
Okay.
Are you planning to attend that meeting next Monday night?
The ZBA?
Mm-hmm.
I can, yes.
That would be good. You have a understanding of the particulars.
Right. And I will say again that when Pam Sanderson in November of 2019 went through all the crossings. She did mention crossing D and the culvert and all that stuff too. So it was in their intention, I guess we would put it that way, when they were making special exceptions, that would be covered then.
Mr. Chairman, would you, for the record, just ask if any of the folks that are here for this case?
Just about to do. So at this point tonight, I'll open public comment on this case. If you are present in the meeting, please either raise your hand or unmute yourself and get my attention somehow if you'd like to speak on this case. Okay. I'm not seeing any changes in microphones or video feeds, so I will take that as a no. Going once, going twice. Again, I'll close the public comment section of this hearing, subject to reopening as needed. Okay, thank you. Okay, so it sounds like we have some to-dos. Mr. Holden's going to get us a final list of plans to, or at least to James, and James can send those on, and we will proceed from there. Do we have a request for continuance? I think we're going to have one on the way. If not, Mr. Holden, you're muted.
In October 21st, we wrote asking for the process to be continued until February 25th.
Okay.
So I was going to write another letter because I'm sure we'll be done by the 25th, but just in case.
Okay. That would be, well.
So you would have meetings, either the workshop would be February 11th. The
Right.
regular meeting would be February 25th.
Right. What I'm thinking, and I'm sort of thinking out loud, is to, do you think between James and Mr. Holden, we could get the draft conditions ready by the February 11th so that we can get the board could get them and have a chance to look at them for discussion on the 25th?
So you're proposing continuing to the 25th, but making sure that you've got at least 2 weeks notice with that list to read and digest.
That's my intent. I'm getting a head nod from Hal. Other members of the board want to comment on that plan?
I think that's doable for me. In order for that to be doable, I definitely need that final plan set, I would say at least by the 1st of February, but the sooner the better, so that I've got more time to play around with my schedule. And if I have questions, it would give us time to email back and forth if need be.
And I guess I was saying it from the perspective of, or thinking of the perspective of continuing to the 11th so that you could distribute it. But if we don't need to meet for this case to distribute it, then it could be a little bit
I
later. As long
prefer
as
to just distribute by email, and you can consider any questions and keep a list and bring them on the 25th.
Okay. That's my preference. I don't know, anybody else have anything different? I mean, I would like to have at least a week with the final plan set and the list of conditions, and now that we have most of the minutes ready to go through this, it's coming down to, appears to be a close. Okay. out of curiosity, how do we? Oh, Mr. Holden, you said you had a letter drafted for the 25th?
We had sent one on the 21st, which
Yes.
asked to extend the process until the February 25th.
Okay,
That was sent in October.
okay. Would that still be valid, Linda?
Sorry, I didn't hear the last
Yeah.
part. of it.
I think having a written request that mentions February 25th that's been reconfirmed verbally at this meeting, I think that has us covered.
Okay, just double checking.
An email will work.
Well, I think
Yeah.
verbal was, if we have a letter and a verbal, that's fine. Okay.
That's the letter.
How quickly we adapt to new communication methods.
Right,
I would,
sign language.
yes, I would entertain a motion to continue cases 18-13 and 19-20 to February 25th, 2021.
So moved?
Second.
Okay, motion by Ms. Lee Baldwin, second by Ms. Betty Smith. Discussion? Hearing none. Susan can do a roll call vote, please.
Lee,
Yes?
Hal,
Hello?
Yes,
Hello?
Yes, hello.
That's Joe Carter.
oh,
Hang on
hold
one second, Mr. Carter. We got you. We're just about to finish up with this case.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Not a
I tried
problem.
to get them signed.
No problem.
Betty,
Yes.
who did I miss? Tim
Yes.
and Bob.
Yes. Okay, we'll see you in a month, Mr. Holden, Mr. Daco.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you very
Good
much.
night.
Good night.
Thank you.
Okay, next, Mr. Carter, your timing is impeccable. You're probably within less than a minute from calling in to when we're going to hear your case. Why don't we take a 2-minute bio break?
Okay.
We'll be back at probably 8:13.
I'm going to sign off unless you want me to stay on for the next one.
It's entirely up to you, Winnie. If you want to have any comments on this case, you're welcome to. If you don't have any comments, you're welcome to leave. It's entirely up to you.
I think I'll sign off. I don't have a lot of detail in front of me on this one, so probably wouldn't be very useful. Okay,
Okay.
night,
Thank you for attending, Winnie.
Night, Winnie.
night.
Okay. I believe we are back. Or at least we have enough members here to reconvene. So we'll come back at 2:15 or 8:15. And
Got it.
okay. So next up is case 19-6, Joseph Carter, Fatherland Family Trust. And Mr. Carter is here joining us by phone. Okay. And I'm looking at last time we met, which was November 19th. Reading through those minutes. Okay. Do we have any comments from staff, or if you want to bring us up to where we are on this case?
So as you'll recall, for the majority of 2020, this case was on hold. And part of that was pandemic driven. Part of that was also driven by the need for an updated driveway permit from NHDOT. And we had a request from Mr. Carter to the effect that he preferred to wait until that permit was issued by DOT before returning to this board for your consideration. So over the course of the year, we periodically had some communications from the district engineers as to the stage of that review. And then Mr. Carter reached back out in November, December, stating that he was getting close to that issuance with DOT, and also in discussing how that permit worked and the fact that he would have an option working with them to extend that permit depending on when he was prepared for construction and implementation. He felt that he was ready to resume the review process with Northwood. So it's been a long time since we as a board have discussed this with Mr. Carter. So I would recommend either Mr. Carter, if you feel like you'd like to give an update on the status of the project and whether any design items have changed. This would also be a good opportunity for board members to refresh their memory, ask any questions. I think as far as process going forward, we had previously discussed whether we intended to renotice this case, and that discussion became moot because when we didn't have quorum in December, we had to renotice.
Okay.
So I would suggest also providing an opportunity for public comment tonight, in case people are wondering why they got another notice for this project.
Right.
And then I think that from my perspective, the big thing that I am not sure what the status or resolution of is, at the end of 2019, we had voted to send this project for peer review of the stormwater by the town's engineer. And we received that letter. The letter was dated February. And I think Linda and I, over the course of this year, have followed up, and it was resubmitted to us. The same February letter was retransmitted to us, I think in November or December. there are a few questions in that letter that I don't know whether they've been answered or discussed at any length by the board. So I would suggest returning to that and making sure that you have all of the information that you need to satisfy you that the drainage is going to be sufficient.
Okay. Mr. Carter, you want to bring us up to speed on where we're at?
Up to speed on the drainage?
Well,
Yeah. Oh, okay. Well,
What's-
I thought the drainage was approved. I had a large comprehensive drainage report by a professional engineer, Mr. Burden.
you did.
And I thought that was approved. The latest I have is from the DOT. I spoke with them today because they've been backlogged for a whole year.
Yeah.
With Mr. Roger Appleton. Do you have my December 7th, 2020 letter to him?
I do.
That was his. He wrote a letter to me, and I returned with everything that he wanted. I've called him 3 times since then, and he says we're just swamped. He said, and today I talked to him at about 2:00. He called me back, and he said, he guaranteed me I'd have my permit in a month. He said everything looks good. All of the information I sent him in the letter, and also the plans. And he said definitely. He said, I can't promise you the day. He said, but should have it in a month. He said we're really backed up, and there's not many people here.
Okay.
And he told me that a year ago. That he said, don't expect it very soon. He was serious when he was very serious when he meant that. I thought he was kidding me. No, and I tried him twice today, and he was out on inspections. But he did tell me that, and that's in response to my letter, which I think is the last thing on the line. I think I've submitted everything, and I only had one person at the previous meeting speak up about the traffic and the permit, which is my abutter.
Yep. Okay.
And that's about it. I think I've submitted everything, and I would like to request the board a vote so I can go ahead or can't go ahead. A lot of people looking for work up there, and I want to put out some work. I need to put a well in to start with.
Yep.
I'll leave it at that.
Okay. Sounds good. Hal, you had a question or your hand up?
Yeah, maybe a couple of related questions. So I guess based on what I'm hearing from Mr. Carter, my understanding, let me take a step back. My understanding was, Mr. Carter, you were waiting to hear from the DOT to make sure that there was no issues with your driveway permit before we moved any further. So it sounds
That's right.
That sounds like that's resolved. And then as regards to the drainage, I'm going to ask Bob or James to help me sort this out. I recollect that we did get we did get the calculations from your drainage expert. There was 1 or 2 questions that I thought you said you were going to do another recalculation on, and I have to say I don't recollect whether we got that recalculation or not. And that would be the only thing that I can recollect that would be outstanding in my mind, and I'm not even sure it is, tell you the truth.
So what I'm referring to, and I believe the meeting that you're referring to was we had received the drainage materials. The board voted to send them to CMA for a peer review by the town's engineer.
Yes.
And I believe that there were minor corrections, what you're referring to, there were minor corrections that were intended to be done before it was sent. So
and he resubmitted it.
Yep, we got
okay.
resubmitted. It was sent. The revised version was sent to CMA, and they sent us a letter dated February 18th, with their peer review comments. I do not recollect discussing that in significant detail with the board, as that was, immediately before the pandemic hit. We had a shutdown, and we were continuing business for several months at that point.
Okay, so I don't feel so bad now that it's that far back, James, but was there not one or two items where they were asking for some additional calculations?
There are a few items in the letter from the engineer.
That's what I meant, yeah.
Where they request additional information. And I am not aware that, the details in that letter have been discussed on the record by the board, or whether that additional information has been provided.
Yeah,
It's okay, so let's at least get that memo up. Any idea on the timing of that?
I just emailed it out to everybody.
Oh, great. Thank you, Linda.
James, did you or Susan send that? Have you been sending
I saw it
information
somehow.
to Mr. Carter?
Oh,
Yes, listen, I'm listening.
Honestly, over the last 11 months, I would have to search my email. I have no recollection of
I just sent it. Maybe you
how
could
I
send
would have
it. I
passed
don't
that
have his
around.
email.
Okay, I'll forward it to him.
Thank you, Susan.
okay.
yeah, this is what I recollect. There's like a couple minor items like, please clarify the single detention basin and a couple things like that.
Could I interrupt?
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, he sent out a new booklet. It's about half-inch thick with everything in it, and clarified everything. And to my knowledge, that was the latest. He did send out two different booklets with the whole drainage system in it, and then there were some corrections that he had to make, which he made in the new book. And actually, it's almost thick of probably a half-inch thick.
Sure.
And that was the revised calculations. I have two sets, two books, the first and the last.
Do you have a date on the last one?
Pardon?
Do you have a date? Is there a date on the
No,
last
I
one?
don't have it in front of me. No,
Oh,
no,
okay.
but I have it. Yeah, I can give you a date. I can call back if you want. But that he made a new book with the corrections.
Yeah, that's, I think, all
Yeah, I think that's what I'm looking for.
That's just confirmation that information was sent back to them and they're satisfied. Because
I mean, the letter from CMA in reply to the drainage study is dated February 18th. Susan just sent that out. So my suspicion is that it would be in late February or first half of March for a response from the applicant's engineer.
Well, I'm not sure that's the case because
If we
it was
have it.
quite some time before this, even though it was dated, it was never actually received by the town. There
Okay.
was some confusion with it, and then it was several months later before we received this.
Okay, so maybe Mr. Carter, if you can, when you get either make a call to your engineer or look on the second of the two reports for a date, and we can check our records to see if we have one.
Okay.
would it be possible for us to just
Or to get a copy of it.
get a copy of it just so we can confirm? Because we'd probably want it anyway, right?
Sure.
Well, what would be helpful is if Mr. Carter would call in or email, Susan has the email with that information, and I could send it directly to CMA and get it cleared up.
Yeah, just,
And my question is if, I believe Mr. Frankowitz was the one that was working with that.
Oh.
And my question is, if you only have two books, is if he would have given you a new book, he had to make minor changes before this was sent to CMA. if that second book that you have was the final version that was sent for peer review, then that means we don't have a report that addresses the comments from the engineer.
Okay.
Well, is it Mr. Frankowitz that did the calculations, Mr. Carter?
Pardon?
Who was your engineer for the drainage calculations?
Burden. His name is, I think it's Jim Burden, Burdin.
That's me.
Yep, that's James.
That's who is on the board?
He's our town planner.
Oh.
He would
Burden.
review it.
I don't know how to do it, but I
Can you
don't,
hold on?
Hey, tell you what,
It was prepared by New Hampshire Land Consultants. I can see it on the letter.
okay.
okay,
No, but the actual engineer, he hired an engineer to do it, a drainage engineer.
He
And
works
that's
with
the book.
Brown Engineering.
yes.
Do you have his name? The drainage, it might jog my memory.
James Brown Engineering.
Scott
No.
Frankowitz.
No, not
Matt
Frank.
Frankwitz is the surveyor.
Right. He hired a drainage engineer, a specialist for me. The drainage booklet that you'll have,
Well, yes,
true.
we can figure that out.
Okay.
it's on there. Could I ask a question?
Sure.
Can I get a vote on an approval subject to all state, local, and federal permits so I can do some work on the site? Like putting in the well and leveling off that top area. And I'm getting the good prices right now, and I've got everything that you would require other than the permit, one permit, I believe.
Well, that's what I'm saying. To my knowledge, there are still outstanding drainage questions from the town engineer,
Who's the town engineer?
CMA.
Who is it?
CMA is the firm.
Could
Bill
I
Straub is
contact-
the principal. I think, did Jody do this review?
Yes, she did. I think the easiest resolve, if I could step in for a minute,
Go ahead.
would be to have this letter, find out who that engineer is.
All right,
Have
I
this-
have it. I just got to get into my files.
No,
Sure.
no, that's okay. Not this minute, but and send this for those 3 questions to be answered. And then continue it for a week or 2 weeks or whatever you want to do, and then wrap it up. And by then James could have time to finalize what would need to be included.
It's true. We are meeting next week for a public hearing.
Yeah, maybe we
Not
could.
enough time would be, well, we'd be continuing. Is that enough time?
I would think so. It's
Just
up to.
just double
it's up
check it
to
for,
the engineer. I mean, Monday's a holiday, but I would
Right.
think that,
Yeah, we should be able to do that.
I guess I
Yeah.
have to ask Mr. Carter, do you think the engineer would be able to answer those questions?
I imagine you would. Could I get an email of those 3 questions myself?
I think Susan's going to send that to you.
Oh, good. Okay, and I'll talk to the engineer. I'll get the file out, and I'll also get the 2 books. But I think the latest book was an answer to those questions
okay.
because he had to redo it and answer those questions, and that's what I have, and you should have. You should have 2 books.
Okay. Well, so I think that's where we're,
And I can give you the dates of those books.
okay.
Oh, we have them in the office. It's just, we're
Not in the
working
office.
remotely, so we don't, but we can go in there and get that information.
But if did Mr. Carter say he had the dates? Maybe that would just sort of give us some reassurance we got it covered.
Okay, I'll get the 2 dates, and I'll actually give you a copy of the cover if you want. I wouldn't want to redo the whole book. It's quite
No,
a
no,
quite
no.
a drill.
No,
Quite
no,
a
no, no.
dredge.
Yeah, that's not the intent.
No, I
It-
thought you meant you had the dates right now. No, just follow what Linda said then, please.
Just if you call the town hall tomorrow, or Linda can contact or email, so we can trace down those records and make sure we have all of them.
Okay.
Okay, and I think if we can do that, that should get us information. This week, we can take a look at those questions next week, which would be the 21st. And that should potentially give us time to wrap this up
Yeah.
on maybe the 28th. But why don't we consider continuing to the 21st for now, so that we can get all our papers together and make sure everybody has a copy of it and see where we're at with the drainage.
Mr. Chair, as I said, since we did renotice, I would also suggest opening this for comment tonight. Just in case
Exactly.
there's anything else.
Okay. At this time, I'll open this application for a public comment. If you are present in the meeting, you need to at least turn on your mic and get my attention, or preferably your video as well, and raise your hand so I know you were interested in speaking.
Hello,
Yes.
this is Jennifer and Jeffrey Belanger, the abutters.
Okay. Go ahead.
I guess I don't know if there's anything we can do about it. Just, I guess, making our feelings.
I'll stop you there. I can barely hear you.
I'm sorry, I'm coming.
That's
So,
better.
Okay.
Get closer to your mic. Thank you.
I don't know if this affects anything because obviously we've been talking with the neighbors quite a bit about this, and there isn't a person on the road that is looking forward to the added traffic pulling out of this road, extremely dangerous as it is. It's going to add tons of traffic right at a corner that's very difficult to get in and out of already. I don't know that it's a very safe place. I assume that the state would have to get involved with Route 4. Also, I'm a little concerned how he was able to clear that whole lot of existing large trees that should have been still there. You can look on past Google Maps that he just clear cut that whole lot. I don't understand how he was allowed to do that.
And I guess just to speak to potential issues that I've raised in the past 2 years with respect to the wetlands and the environmental conditions, and Harvey Lake in particular, because the Tucker Brook feeds into Harvey Lake. And our lake suffered greatly this year as a result of the drought and a massive cyanobacteria bloom, which lasted for over 2 months. And that's because of directly from pollution. It could be from up the river. This would contribute greatly to polluting this small 110-acre lake that is fragile at best right now.
Okay. Anything else?
No.
At this, okay, thank you. I just want to I don't want to cut you off if you have more to speak. Anyone else from members of the public who would like to comment on this application?
Linda, is that on your end? The background noise?
With Verizon Business.
Thank
you.
Seems like it.
Yep. Okay, we have a couple other members of the public. If you'd like to speak on this application, same thing. Please unmute yourself and just get my attention somehow.
Sorry, folks. That was my other computer. It took a life of its own.
Okay. Not hearing anything from others other members of the public. So I will close public comment, subject to reopening at a later date. And at this point, I think it would be appropriate to continue. Unless anyone else disagrees.
Are we continuing to the 21st, Bob?
That's what I was going to say. Why don't we continue to the 21st? That should give us enough time to get our paperwork located and copied and sent around and get a response from the engineer by that point in time. So I'd entertain a motion to continue case 19-6 to January 21st.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Kreider, a second by Ms. Baldwin, and a third by Ms. Betty Smith. Discussion? Hearing none. Susan can do a roll call vote, please.
Lee,
Yes.
Tim,
Yes.
Hal,
Yes.
Betty,
Yes.
and Bob.
Yes.
Mr. Carter, I forwarded that letter from the town's engineer to you while we were on this call. So
Well, thank you very much.
it should be in your inbox.
Okay.
And I'll leave you in the hands of town staff to make sure we get all our coordination and communications handled. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much for letting me speak at the meeting.
We'll talk to you next week.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Carter.
You're welcome. Bye.
Good night. Okay, we have internal business. One of the things which I think Mr. Jandeber can be receive credit for is getting a copy of the town report before I submit it. That was emailed out to you earlier today. And I know Linda is anxious to get her hands on it because I was late with it.
Why am I getting credit?
You're getting credit because when you were on the planning board, however many years ago it was, you commented that the annual report that the chair writes was submitted without the board seeing it, and your names were on the letter. So you requested that you see a letter before I submit it, or that the chair submits it. So it was emailed today earlier. And I would just wanted to make sure, see if there were any comments.
I didn't have a chance to read it, Bob. I apologize.
No, that's okay. I can read it if you want.
Well, if you just give us a minute, we could just look at it, especially if you want to try to approve this or get agreement on it tonight. I just need a minute or two.
Sure. Did everybody get a copy? Who wants a copy? Tim, do you get emails?
Yes, and I read it and I thought it looked very good.
Okay.
The only question I had, and I'm looking for my copy, was the first comma.
The first what, please, Tim?
So that's oh, I know where to put it.
I gotta dig it up myself.
Yeah, this is nicely done as far as I'm concerned.
Oh, just a quote from The More Things Change, the More They Stay the Same.
Well, no, I'm wrong. I'm sorry. It's the year with a mixed bag for the planning board with some old. I thought that one comma, planning board comma with some old, I thought that was an extra comma. My opinion, but that's what I think.
Yes, it is.
Other than that, I thought it was a very fine letter.
Yep, very good.
Thank you. Anyone else? Think you
No,
want to see
good.
any change?
Sounded good.
Okay, so I think we can just get rid of that. Oops, I even cut out the wrong one. It's pretty good, Tim, that you catch me on an editing error. Nice job.
And
Okay,
me as well, because I proofread it too. So I gotta
Oh, well.
see where the extra comma is.
I think it's after, just before with.
Yeah.
Okay, what other internal business do we have? Anything?
We're all
Final
reviewing.
reminder of the filings next
Yep.
week, starting on Wednesday through the 29th.
Ooh, Bob,
Yeah, go ahead.
would you
Oh,
consider doing a screen print for our photo?
Oh, yes, thank you.
As such it is, you know?
Well, I have the screen grab up.
I tried to do it earlier.
Oh, okay. So maybe this is redundant.
No, but now I see Betty and James and Hal.
Lee,
are
do you
looking-
have a camera?
No.
Okay. I know Tim's in by phone, so that won't work, but that's okay. We will, okay, I'll give you about 3 seconds to get on your best and get, yep.
Oh, yeah, yeah. green.
Let me do my hair.
Yeah. Yeah. Worse than the women, huh?
Can Lee, can you come on or you don't want
She
to?
doesn't have a camera.
I don't have a camera.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
We'll Photoshop her in. Just send us a
We'll
picture, Photoshop in.
Just pull somebody offline because, you know, like half the town thinks I'm a guy anyway.
Okay. Count of 3, 2, 1. Okay, we're in. And nobody has their eyes closed.
Yeah.
And nobody's head is cut off, and I have a smile on my face. James has a smile on his face, and so does Betty. So, and Hal, for that matter. Okay, I think that's pretty good. I will save that and email it out.
So we can Photoshop Tim in for Betsy and maybe Susan in. And yeah, I think we have enough blank spots here that we can Photoshop everybody in.
Assuming they have send us pictures.
Yeah. Like Lee said, we'll find something.
Yeah, just pull off something off one of the Photoshop sites, you know.
We'll
Okay,
find
actually, I'll
something.
just email that out to everybody right now.
I'll send you a picture of sheep. How's that?
There you go. However you want to express yourself, Lee.
Okay, give me 1 second.
I have 2 questions.
Sure, go ahead.
Is anybody in town hall tomorrow?
No.
Oh,
Well, yes, I'm sorry.
Walter will
Paul
be.
will be there, but I mean, it depends on what if you're looking to have somebody provide service, if you're dropping off, you can drop off.
No, I'm looking for a time when I can meet with James and get some more information on some of these cases that I'm interested in. So I'll call him and see what time next week. I've managed to break my humerus, so I have some time now.
Oh,
You're humorous?
Or your humor.
Yeah.
Ooh,
yeesh.
that sounds pretty
Well, it's good.
serious.
Yeah.
And
Who
what
is
was my
it?
second question?
You're looking to have a meet with James, you might want to do that on Zoom.
Yeah, Tim, I think it would be,
I want to make copies of some of the files that I'm missing.
Oh, okay. Well, James isn't typically in the office, but I'm been
all right.
going in on Mondays, every other Monday. But I'll probably be going back in on Mondays all the time. And then Susan is there either Tuesday or Thursday. You'd have to check with her.
and
planning
Tim,
on
I would say
Tuesday.
if you wanna just talk with me, I'll be out of the office tomorrow and on Monday, but if you want to shoot me an email with a good time to call you, Tuesday through Thursday of next week, I can just give you a call and we can talk through anything you need.
All right. I'm missing a lot of the file stuff, and I want to get it, and I have some questions. Like, for instance, so that was my second question. On the little golf course thing, is that right on Route 4? Looking at what the map I have, I can't tell.
Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
Is the entrance to that mini golf course right on Route 4?
Yes.
Correct.
It is.
just doesn't say Route 4 on it anywhere. It says the other road, but it doesn't say Route 4.
No.
So, all right. But anyway, no, I'd like to, maybe I'll work with Linda and see what day she's in, and I can come in and just make some copies of some of the files that I'm missing.
Sure.
Sounds good. Okay.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, I'd consider a final motion then.
Motion
tonight.
to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, anyone disagree? We're not going to bother with a roll call vote since it's unanimous, and we are adjourned at 8:50 on January 14th, 2021. Thank you very much
Thank you,
for
Bob.
your work, and we'll see you next week.
Next Thursday, 7